Here we go. Good evening and welcome to the Town Board of the Town of Ossining Legislative Session for Tuesday, July 6th, 2021 in person. Please rise and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance and then remain standing for a moment of silence for Jack Murphy, Roy Song, and John McGrory, 3 lives we lost this week that were important to the Ossining community. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Jack Murphy was part of the team that runs Malik, the wonderful Turkish restaurant on Main Street in the village of Ossining. Jack passed away last week, and we mourn his loss and offer condolences to his family and friends. This weekend, we also lost Roy Song, Ossining High School class of 2018. A GoFundMe is circulating for members of the community to contribute to funeral costs and other expenses. John McGrory, who served as interim assessor for the town of Ossining in 2011 and 12, also passed away on Friday, July 2nd. He was a beloved colleague for many members of town staff who worked with him, and especially to our assessor's office staff with whom he stayed in touch even after leaving the town. Our thoughts and prayers are with the families of Jack, Roy, and John during this difficult time. And I think we're going to go to into I guess our announcements. So this is our first in-person meeting, although many of you may be watching us on Zoom, since March of 2020, and we're happy to have one person in our audience, real and live and in person. He happens to be a reporter, so look for the report in the Examiner. We're all thankful to be back and to be able to see each other in person again. We've decided to hold these meetings in person and via Zoom to allow members of the public to continue to participate from the safety and comfort of their own homes. We will offer hybrid meetings at least until the end of summer, and because hybrid meeting capabilities are only available here in the first floor boardroom of the Ossining Municipal Building at 16 Croton Avenue, both scheduled work sessions and legislative sessions will be held here for the time being. I want to just give a shout out to our tech team, our IT team of Craig Cooper and Christina. I'm having a moment because I haven't had to say.
LeBou.
Sorry, LeBou, thank you. Christina LeBou for all their help and hard work. And I think we had help from Tom Earl, Tom Campanella, who can be with us this evening. And thanks to Jesse in the back. So we're very grateful for all the hard work of everybody to get ready for this meeting, and also to the village for all of their hard work imagining it. Last week, our first scheduled summer concert, unfortunately, we had a downpour, so we had to postpone it. The Thornwoods have been rescheduled for Sunday, July 25th. The concerts will, fingers crossed, be starting up this week with the Sleepy Hollow String Band on Friday at 7 p.m. at the waterfront. Unfortunately, we have heard that there's some weather coming our way this weekend as well. So, like I said, fingers crossed, but no promises. Food trucks and our new craft beverage corral will be at Engle Park, hopefully, and will begin serving at 5 p.m. The Greater Ossining Chamber of Commerce had a great lineup of local eats for Food Truck Fridays last week. We can't wait to see what they have lined up for this Friday. Thank you also to the Sing Sing Kill Brewery for organizing the inaugural season of the Craft Beverage Corral. And again, they also had a great lineup, and Mike and Miriam Risco for coordinating the performers this year. We hope to see you soon at one of our Friday night concerts. The Community Equity Task Force has reopened the survey to encourage residents to share their thoughts about inequity in Ossining. The survey was shared in my supervisor's update on Friday and on the Equity Facebook page. This survey is used by the task force to pinpoint areas for further attention. There are spaces for residents to provide free-form answers and shorter options. Please take, or short-form responses. Please take the survey and share it. Residents who completed the 2020 survey are encouraged to update the task force by completing it again in 2021. The Cedar Lane Dog Park and Pavilion will be closed this week, weather permitting, starting on Wednesday to allow for crews to repave the access road to these sites. So basically up from the little triangle that shoots you in all different directions, up to the pavilion and the dog park. We're excited to see this road get much needed attention, which was originally planned to happen during the pandemic, but had to be postponed for that reason. We hope our furry friends will try the dog run at Ryder Park while this project gets completed. The paving is weather dependent, so a tentative reopening of these sites is planned for Monday, July 12th. The Ossining Food Scraps program is continuing to have great success. The Cedar Lane drop-off site will not be impacted by this week's work. Residents can also drop off their food scraps to be recycled next to the green Ossining table at the Ossining Farmers Market. While you're visiting the farmers market to drop off your food scraps, be sure to check out some of the amazing local vendors. You may be surprised how much of your grocery list can be purchased through this hidden gem. It's not hidden for me because that's where I start my shopping every week, and I hope you do too, and then fill in at our local grocery stores. This weekend, the town of Ossining dog census started arriving in people's mailboxes. This process, which is an attempt to count how many dogs live in the town of Ossining, including both villages, will hopefully remind dog owners that New York state law requires all dogs over 4 months of age to be licensed with their local clerk's office. For residents in the town and village of Ossining, that is with our town clerk, and for residents in the village of Briarcliff Manor, it's with the village of Briarcliff clerk. Please return the form as requested, and if you do have a doggy who may not yet be fully licensed, the mailing includes a quick and easy QR code to access the licensing requirements. As a reminder, if you are a student entering college in the fall, now is the time to get vaccinated against COVID-19 prior to the start of the fall semester. With the waiting time between doses for Moderna and Pfizer, plus 14 days to reach full immunity, early July is just about the deadline for getting the COVID-19 vaccine checked off your pre-college to-do list. The good news is that Ossining Volunteer Ambulance Corps makes it extremely easy to get vaccinated. Thursday, July 8th and Friday, July 9th, vaccines are available at OVAC headquarters at 8 Clinton Avenue from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m., and they will have all three types, Moderna, Pfizer, and Johnson & Johnson available. OVAC will also be at the Tash Farmers Market on Saturday, July 10th from 9 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. Walk-ins are accepted for all of these dates, but you can make an appointment in advance by visiting the OVAC Facebook page. And they were at the Ossining Farmers Market a couple weeks ago. If you have questions about the vaccine, OVAC EMTs are happy to answer your questions if you email covidtest@ossiningvac.org. Finally, as mentioned, we are closely monitoring Tropical Storm Elsa, which is currently nearing hurricane strength off the coast of Florida. The Westchester County Office of Emergency Management sent us an email or two today to inform us that they are monitoring the situation and shared a report from the National Hurricane Center that Elsa may be in our area by late Thursday, early Friday. The storm is expected to cross the Florida Peninsula tomorrow morning, then the southeastern part of the country on Thursday, which will hopefully weaken the storm slightly. But the storm could potentially pick up speed again over the western Atlantic, just off the mid-Atlantic and New England coasts, which could bring severe weather to New York Thursday and Friday. We'll continue to monitor the situation and review updates from the county and National Hurricane Center over the next few days. We actually think we even got a warning today on our phones. I don't know if everybody got that from Con Ed this morning about the weather today. So we might be, that was the heat advisory. So prepare for the worst. We're going to prepare for the worst, hope for the best, and report back to the community as needed. Of course, we are hoping it doesn't scuttle our plans for Friday night. Fingers crossed tightly. And because of the extreme heat, I do know that the community center is going to be open as a cooling center, I think through Friday. I believe it's 10 to 8. And also, we're trying to keep our spray park open on super hot days, extend the hours a little bit, as long as it doesn't interfere with camp, which actually it would tomorrow. So it might have been open for extra hours today because we're trying to do that when we have the extreme heat. So that's it for my announcements. Do my board colleagues have anything to add? All right. Well, anyway, it's so nice to see live people in person. You guys look definitely better in person than on camera. I mean, I don't know. The camera makes us all look a little different, right? So with that, we are going into our work session agenda. Ow. Now that is service.
service.
That's service with a smile. Thank you, Craig Cooper. Okay, so we have with us this evening Leo Wigman from Sustainable Westchester, who is going to be discussing with us a petition being made by NYSERDA that may compromise the Westchester Power Community Choice Aggregation Program, which benefits so many in our community. Sustainable Westchester has requested municipalities sign onto a comment letter regarding this petition, so we are going to learn a little bit more about this issue with Leo tonight so that the board can consider signing on to this letter. And I think we also have Carmen Santos with us, also from Sustainable Westchester. So welcome to both of you, and I'm hoping, can we see these people? How's that all working? I don't know. Should we turn off our mics? Is that going to be helpful?
No, that was hers.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah, try not to do that. Okay.
Okay, live and
All
learn.
right, so with that, I think I'm just going to turn it over. This is a request for comments on petition 19E0735 of the New York State Energy Research and Development Authority requesting additional New York Sun program funding and extension of program through 2025. So again, Leo Wigman, who is the Director of Solar Programs for Sustainable Westchester, welcome, and Carmen, also welcome to you.
Thank you, Supervisor Lettenberg and Town Board. Good to see you all there in person. I have with me, as Supervisor mentioned, Carmen Santos, who is our Director of our opt-out solar programs, and we're just about to launch those in a few months, and you'll hear much more about that from us. But in the meantime, as you know, the Sustainable Westchester Power Electric Supply Program offers electric supply on fixed-rate contracts to over 115,000 Westchester residents and small businesses in 28 municipalities. Yonkers is about to join the consortium of Westchester Power municipalities, which would be another big additional number of municipal residents under Yonkers. And it's a very strong desire of our opt-out community solar program, which is going to be a second offering from Westchester Power to go along with electric supply, to have as our target first wave cohort for that to be the municipal residents who are either in the utilities assisted participation program, where they're getting assistance on their electric bills, or to have that be residents in low to moderate income census tracts, or to have it be residents who live in environmental justice areas throughout the county's participating municipalities. And Carmen and our team is working very hard to sort of gather up how many thousands and thousands of households that is that we can offer this direct benefit once the solar credit program launches. We just submitted our master implementation plan to the Department of Public Works, Department of Public Service, sorry. I'm sure the Department of Public Works will love to read it too, but to launch our opt-out community solar program later this year. We're waiting for their review. We expect to be approved, and we'll come back to you with more information. In the meanwhile, our opt-out community solar program would deliver savings, which would vary a little bit from month to month, to those households that we've particularly isolated or that we've identified and been able to characterize on a sort of census tract basis throughout Westchester County. And there will be some communities that have larger numbers of such electric customers, and will be receiving a stronger benefit, so to speak. In the meantime, New York State Energy Research Development Authority teamed up with an international energy conglomerate, otherwise known as National Grid, here to offer a straight $10 a month bill reduction to residents that they identify as low to moderate income throughout the entire service territory for National Grid, without there needing to be any kind of underlying community choice aggregation program that's sort of bubbled up from the grassroots. Our community choice aggregation program in Westchester never would have started as a top-down thing. It bubbled up from, Austining, village and town getting together, Groton, Cortland, etc., Bedford, and, New Michelle White Plains, which is what created us, which was what caused us 6 years ago to start this program, which we initially launched with 20 municipalities, and now we're up to 28. When Yonkers joins, it'll be 29. There's another community on the way that will be making 30. And as a result, we've been able, as we promote the electric supply options for municipalities, we're also able to then piggyback messages there about the energy smart homes, as you've been doing. We've been able to integrate that with electric vehicle offerings, making that available to local residents. We've been able to integrate that with the other kinds of programs that municipal members of Westchester have wanted. So, but NYSERDA has teamed up with National Grid to propose this sort of a blanket approach to provide benefits throughout all of the low and moderate income households that they say they can serve, on a sort of scattered anywhere within their service territory. Now, initially that sounds like a great idea. Everybody gets $10 off if you're in a certain category, but there's no geographic focus to it, and it's sort of a one-off thing. If the Public Service Commission essentially approves this petition and awards this program to NYSERDA and National Grid, it essentially puts the utility in front of the local home rule about creating programs that are particularly beneficial to your municipality, let's say. So that's our one objection. Our first objection is that it replaces home rule with this utility rule. I'm here from the utility. I'm here to help across everything. The second objection that we have is that if the utility service territory for National Grid is large enough, that they could essentially soak up all the solar credits that were available from all the solar farms that were in the pipeline and redistribute them all themselves and leave nothing for those of us who have active, ongoing community choice aggregation programs that have electric supply that are now adding this community solar credit benefit. There wouldn't be any air left in the room after they had bought off essentially restored all the credits for themselves. So that's a sort of serious consideration as well. And lastly, we have been talking with other local community choice aggregation providers that run programs throughout New York State, one of which is Mega Municipal Electric Gas Alliance, and a couple of others, and sort of have found there to be a universal sort of aversion among those of us who've been working in the grassroots, one municipality at a time, to build these programs, to having a sort of top-down utility-imposed, but $10 a household sounds great across the board for wherever they choose to make this available. And we think we're losing the ability, if that is granted, that there will be no more incentive to create these from the bottom up electric supply offerings coupled with the solar credit offerings. It'll just all be top down and spread over, just sort of random seeds spread across the meadow, if you will. We think that there's some significant concerns about whether that geographically scattered approach across an entire utility territory makes any sense versus our much more careful sort of dissection of where these neighborhoods are that are going to be most highly impacted, and let's focus the effort there. And then, in addition, the fact that their utility-wide could be so large that they could soak up all the available solar credits from all the community solar farms in the pipeline. So those are the two real reasons why we're asking our municipal members to consider writing a letter to the Secretary, expressing concerns or opposition. Anyway, I'll leave it at that. Carmen, did I miss any highlights?
Sure. I mean, yes, I could just expand a little bit more. With community choice, like Leo said, we are able to come together as communities and bring about education to our community members about our path towards clean energy. And with Westchester Power, this would be the second offering, and it would be targeted to not only utility assistance program participants, which is a targeted population for the NYSERDA and National Grid benefits that are being posed. But we would also go to low to moderate income if we had the capacity. And we believe that us working together, we are educating our community members on making educated choices and participating in a clean energy economy. While with NYSERDA and National Grid working together, the education won't be as robust, and there are also opportunities for these to really not impact our communities in what's currently really needed in terms of climate change, in terms of clean energy transition, and our action behind that, us as in people. So that's all I wanted to add.
Thank you, Carmen. It was very, very helpful. And just one other thing crossed my mind is when we sort of did the math on if the utilities are going to give $10 to every low to moderate income household, however they define it, across the entire service territory, that money has to come from somewhere. And as near as we can tell, only about half of it would be available from the utilities through the solar credit program, and that they would probably have to supplement that by taking money from some other buckets that NYSERDA has from programs that might otherwise also be benefiting the same targeted low to moderate income household. So we're very suspicious that the dollars don't add up, that without going outside of the utility program for solar credits and getting additional dollars that may be perhaps unspent, but allocated toward other kinds of assistance for the target audience. And that part was left sort of unexplained in the proposal. So we're a little bit leery of losing dollars for this community because it all has to go through this one funnel when we want there to be many different funnels directed at many different municipalities, and have the home rule of the local municipalities decide which kind of program options they would most want, rather than one size fits all for the entire geography of 8 or 9 or 10 counties, however large the utility service territory is. National Grid has petitioned to do this, but if it's granted for National Grid, we have no doubt that the other utilities, such as Con Edison, will then jump into line and want the same benefit bestowed upon them. So that's our request, is that you consider sending a letter. We have more information for you if you like. We're happy to take any questions. I know you have a long board meeting agenda.
Thank you. Okay, so just let me open it up to the board. Do you want me to summarize, or do you have some questions before I try to do
I
that?
have a question.
Okay.
So they're buying up all the solar credits, and we tend to lean toward wind. Are they buying those as well? Are they buying up all the,
Yeah, so the renewable energy credits can be derived from hydropower, wind power, solar power. The state told us when we had a bit of a squeeze that we should go look at the hydropower credits. It turned out there were none available, but they were already allocated. And it turned out the wind power credits were not allocated at a price that we could really reasonably build into our program. So the solar power credits would be largely the ones that are growing the fastest, because upstate the price of leasing land is lower than it is down here, so people are tending to build bigger solar farms out in the National Grid territory than down here. But it could be, to answer your question, Liz, it could be any one of those three sources: hydropower, less likely; wind power, potentially; or solar power, more likely.
okay, what does that do to our competitive bidding if they get their way? Oh, what does that do to our competitive bidding for the power?
But what does it do to our competitive bidding?
Well, we as a group get a lower price?
Right. But if the solar energy credits that the solar farms are producing effectively have already been allocated, have already been sort of bought up by, if you will, the National Grid program, then there won't be any other credits available for anyone else in National Grid. That doesn't affect us in Con Edison territory here, but it will once Con Edison is able to do that, right? So.
All right.
Just want to give a clarification. So currently we have a Westchester Power program that we refer to as Community Aggregation Program.
Right.
And it currently supplies, what the first offering is electricity supply, and that's what we, when we're talking about competitive bidding, we're usually referring to the electricity supply that will come together and purchase. Now, what Leo and I are working on is the second offering for Westchester Power, and that would be kind of like an opt-out community solar program where solar credits would be made available to your constituents. And in Con Ed, we're prioritizing assistance program participants as well as low to moderate income and environmental justice areas. Eventually, we would prioritize the rest of the community that is participating in the electricity supply program. But what we are racing up as a potential threat is that if National Grid succeeds and creates this program, which is currently in the area of National Grid, is taking up almost all of the solar credits available, then that sets a precedent for Con Edison in our area, which Con Edison is the utility and it would affect our residents. They would be able to also potentially do this blanket program that was described to you by Leo as a top-down approach of doing this without the benefits of doing community outreach and educating our residents of their participation in the clean energy path.
Yeah, we've identified, I think it's fair to say, Carmen, that we've identified about 25,000 households so far that we think could benefit from our approach here in Westchester of not sort of being very targeted and finding the exact census blocks and the exact groups of addresses that would be specifically targeted and benefited from our approach on a community by community basis. And that number may go up quite a bit as we finish our analysis, and we're collaborating with the Westchester County Information Technology Office, and we'll also collaborate with their social service agencies to figure out how to get the messaging out.
Okay, so let me just turn to my other left side since I don't have to look at boxes. Anybody? Okay, so Leo and Carmen, I'm just trying to understand because it's not 100% clear to me that this isn't a better benefit for more residents, the NYSERDA / National Grid. Like, I'm just not 100% clear that it's not just ultimately easier for people to access it. And can you hear me? Can you guys hear me?
Yeah,
Okay, that it isn't just easier. I understand that we lose control, but does it also offer a bigger, more widespread benefit to more people who are in the low mod income category? I get, so in other words, we have, how many communities did you say that we're going to be up to 28, 29 communities? So, but this would benefit everybody, right? So I'm just not 100% clear that it just doesn't, I understand that we lose the education piece, but do we gain more people benefiting who need and potentially deserve the benefit, just because,
So
yeah.
The answer, in the abstract, the answer may be that it sounds great to give everyone a $10 savings.
But again, could $10, it's not a one-time $10, it's $10 a month, correct?
Well, that was the premise, was $10 a month.
$10 a month,
We
okay.
started to do the math on how much money that would be across the National Grid territory. There weren't enough dollars behind the solar credits to provide that. They'd have to go into the state funds and get additional dollars from somewhere else. We're not saying that we think that's a bad idea, to give everyone, to spread the benefit as widely as possible. We just think that municipalities are typically going to be more aware where they would rather direct the targeted effort. So other than the utility having a sort of one-size-fits-all approach that they really have not explained how they're going to fund, we have an approach that we know we can definitely fund, even if the amount of dollar savings per household may be $4 or $5 or maybe $12. It depends on the size of the electric bill of the household. Our benefit to the household will vary depending on the size of the electric bill. The higher the electric bill for the house, the higher the ultimate dollar savings, up to 10%. bill. So our approach gives each household a variable benefit depending on how much electricity they use, and does so in the context of having them have access to all the other programs that are being offered through, in this case, Sustainable Westchester, upstate, and other places, it's other groups.
But again, this is for the next round of Westchester Power, you're saying,
This is-
the,
right,
for,
we're about
so it's not something that anybody's has yet. It's, unless they've opted in on their own to community solar, correct?
Correct.
Which,
Correct.
and does that go away then if they've opted into community solar? And/or what happens to people who might or might not have,
So all folks
solar
who
panels?
opted in, for example, to participate in the Marino carport, solar carport project,
Yep,
are gonna keep that subscription no matter what,
okay,
with the solar credits coming to them. The opt-out program will be for anybody who's not already opted in, doesn't already have solar on their own roof, maybe a renter, may own a condo, or otherwise pays an electric bill but isn't directly participating already in solar. So we've worked very hard to have our program, as we proposed it in our 50-page submission to the Department of Public Service, so we can go be quite targeted and be able to be flexible for some municipalities. Some municipalities have who are participating in Westchester Power have higher low to moderate income populations than others, so we want to be able to particularly make sure that the benefit flows there first, and that we are able to help the folks in that group who have higher electric bills on a proportional basis and not having to be one size fits all. $10 means a lot to everybody, but it means, if your electric bill is $400, not $200, $10, you wonder, why is my neighbor getting the same discount I am? So it's the same $10 discount. So we're trying to make it a program that can be funded from the existing solar credit dollars that are flowing through the system, or will flow once the utilities implement the consolidated billing.
all right.
One way to answer your question also, maybe that right now, it is putting one entity, this program is putting one entity in most of the power of that space, which is trying to promote renewable energy and the development of new solar arms and more. So that would be National Grid, and it's a big company. And so I think that if NYSERDA wanted to do this type of program, it likely would have been better if they didn't take entire or like a lot of solar credits within that utility zone, because it excluded the idea that there may be community choice aggregations, that there may be municipalities, that there may be organizations trying to make this happen, and also bring benefits to their communities or their constituents. Now, that could be a position that you may want to consider, and we do understand that low to moderate income households really need these benefits, but what we are proposing as we are doing this work, while we are looking to prioritize them, is to also help them get educated on other programs that are available to them. So, for example, the Empower program and many other available programming that they could benefit from and get benefits beyond those solar credits. So I think that could be another part of your consideration also. And that's all I guess I would want to add. Thank you.
Okay, so power in the hands of smaller groups versus power in the hands of the larger conglomerates, I guess you could say. Any other further questions?
Just to clarify, I mean, all of our members get lower priced green energy by being a part of community choice, so
Aggregation, yeah.
aggregation, thank you. If the the lower income people are getting a bigger benefit, is that taking away the benefit from all of the other members?
I didn't quite hear the question. I'm sorry.
Yeah, she was just asking if this has a negative, if this has an uneven impact on community choice aggregation, if low, moderate income households would be benefiting more from the solar credits. Is that right?
No, does it take away from the regular discount on green energy that all of us are getting to, are you switching the pool? Are you giving,
So that's a good question. The current offering that Westchester Power has is an electric supply offering.
right,
And each town, like the town of Austin, will opt into the standard grid mix or the 100% renewable energy credit tax mix, whether that's.
right, which is what we chose.
That stays in place, and if you're participating in that, nothing changes about that. We're simply now going to be offering a second offering
Okay,
of the community solar credits that are going to be based on what each household share of the solar farm will produce.
okay, so
Which will be higher in the summer when there's more sun hours and lower in the winter when there's, obviously it's darker sooner.
Right. Hold on.
But that, and so far.
Leo, just wait a second. Okay.
Let me
go
just
ahead.
clarify. So our regular lower cost green energy by being part of the group is staying in place, and there's a second program. That's all I needed to know.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, sorry, yeah. So this is a second offering. This is a second, entirely.
I get it.
second-
Yeah, okay, thanks, Leo, yep. Okay, so,
I just wanted to clarify that.
all right, so, are there any questions? Any more questions? Are we okay with the supporting the letter that they sent around, that we sent around for, I think there was a sample letter that they produced? We just need a
Yeah, I saw that.
consensus. Okay, you guys can take a look. I don't think we have it here in our packet, so we can recirculate that, okay?
Okay.
And I think that they extended the deadline for when we needed to
Oh,
upload
good.
the
So
letter
it was-
till August. Yeah,
Okay.
it was fake.
I want to take another look at it now that I've
Yes.
had the information.
Okay. All right, great. If we have any further questions, we'll let you know, and we'll, let you know where we come out on this, okay? We thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, have a good evening.
You too, thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
So next up, we have, hopefully, our recreation superintendent joining us virtually, Bill Garrison, to discuss summer usage at Lewis Engel Park. And I know it's hard to believe, but we're already a couple weeks into the official summer. During the summer, Lewis Engel Park is one of the most heavily used parks with picnic areas, playground, spray park, camp programs, concerts, and people just looking to enjoy the scenic vistas. The heavy use of the park can sometimes lead to quality of life concerns like increased litter and safety concerns like use of the beach, which has not yet been permitted by the Westchester County Department of Health as a bathing beach. We want to make sure the park is safe and fun for everyone to enjoy, so Bill is here with us tonight to discuss how things have been going there so far this summer. I think camp started last week, and any suggestions for improvements for the town board to consider. So welcome. And now we lost him. All right, welcome and goodbye. Now, hopefully, we'll see you again momentarily.
No, he's still there. Bill, can you hear us?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. We
can't
just
see you
yeah.
for some reason.
Okay, great.
There you are. Okay, all right, much better. Okay.
All right, here we go. Good evening, board. Thank you, Supervisor Levenberg. So, what's going on down at Lewis Engel Park is it's because the park has had so many improvements lately, and we're looking to improve more. We're getting more and more visitors down there, and we've got more and more programs going on. And it shouldn't be a shock to us because we've got a great playground down there. The spray pad is something that people from all over the county talk about. The concert series, we now bring our Brookside camp, which is a pre-K, K1 camp down there on Wednesdays to use the park. We also are running a kayak camp and kayak tours. We are contracting with a contractor called Hudson Valley Guides that is doing that. And it's just it's an ideal spot for all these activities and programs to occur. The downside is that it's with all the use, there are lots of issues with garbage, bathrooms, rentals, other facilities, conflicts with groups, and we are working our way through that right now. We've got a lot of groups that are making reservations for the picnic areas, which is great. We've had about 24 reservations so far this year. We've got another 3 that are pending, and we're just in our first week of July, so we anticipate a lot more going on there. All the Friday night concerts, we made the right call last Friday, canceling, which was the right thing to do because of the weather coming in. It was unfortunate, but it was the right thing to do. But we're looking forward to some good Friday nights. And we've got some bands playing down there. Also, our kayak contractor is coming in and running kayak tours. So as the band's playing in the background, you see the kayaks floating by. We're listening to the band out on the water. So it'll be a great thing going on. As Supervisor Levenberg spoke to, we do have a problem with people going into the water at the beach. And we've got signs posted that there is no swimming. So we are dealing with that. We have a park ranger who works Wednesdays through Sundays, who's been instructed to go and ask people and remind people to not be in the water, that it is a park rule that they should not be in the water. But that is it's a difficult task. And I think anybody that goes down there on any given day, if it's warm, we'll see people in the water. I know that we're looking into the water quality because that's an issue. Is the water, safe to be in? First of all, which is actually one of the first requirements that we need to look at if we're going to go through the process of making that a public bathing facility with the Westchester County Health Department. And this is a process which would, in my opinion, take about 2 years to fulfill. We need to, before we go to the county, we have to have a history of water testing. We also will need engineering reports and engineering guidelines about is the area okay for it to be a bathing facility. And all that would be submitted in an application to the Department of Health in Westchester. From that, we work with the health department on everything going from safety, from what the bottom of the river is like, to how we're going to test the water, how we're going to have a safety plan of keeping that water safe, keeping that beachfront safe. So it's a very long process. It's not out of the question, and it's been done at Croker Point, as we all know, and it certainly could be done in Austin, but it is something that's not going to happen overnight, which doesn't help us right now because we still have the problem of people being in the water. So while we have many plans for the park, we're looking for some grants, as many of you know, and we're excited about that. But with that, we have to keep in mind that as we continue to improve the park, we're going to continue to have these issues of the number of people coming into the park and how we're going to address that and how we're going to manage that. So that's something I just wanted to put out to the board this evening, and I'm open to any questions.
All right, so I just want to add, I think that, we have had some discussions, our CDBG grants. We know that we were applying for sort of the bigger picture improvements to the park, knowing that we were hoping that we can get approval from the county at some point, but also knowing that a lot of the more intense use of the park tends to be at the southern end of the park, because we do have the picnic areas there, the spray pad, and the playground, so that attracts lots of families. And it obviously makes it easier for people to have a lovely day in the park. So as a couple of the other things that we talked about offline that we thought maybe would be good for the board to consider. Recently, we had a complication at one of the permitted areas. So right now, the rule on the books is that if you have less than 20 people, you don't require a permit if the location isn't being permitted. So if you have 19 people, 18 people, 16, 12 people, or whatever, but you want to reserve that area for the day, theoretically, you could just put your stuff there, and if you don't happen to see the sign and somebody else shows up later in the day with their permit, you now seem to have squatters' rights. So it's complicated, and that's what happened recently, because the permitted sign either had been ripped down or wasn't there. So in any case, what we think might be helpful is to require anybody who wants to stake a claim to an area and reserve a space for the day, no matter what size, to be required to get a permit. So that's something, again, you're planning in advance, you want to have a party there, you want to have a bunch of people there, you want to stake a claim to the picnic tables and the grill, you need to get a permit. So that's one thing for the board to consider as helpful. And I know that, again, I've had some offline conversations to think about some other ideas, like maybe there's another location at the park where we could theoretically put a shared area that isn't able to be permitted, that would be open to anybody to grill, and then maybe have, their ashes collected so that they could, throw a few whatever, hot dogs, hamburgers, veggie burgers on the grill, and then, have their family event nearby or a little down in a separate area. There is that one area that a lot of people do like, which is between, kind of near the comfort station and the beach, that potentially could be that spot. So I just kind of wanted to see, board's reaction, if that's something that we think we should consider amending our town code to require permit area, and then maybe look into potentially adding another site that could be a communal site, I guess we could call it, we don't permit it. It's just for, you can't stake a claim
First
to it
come,
for the
first
whole
served.
day. You can't stake a claim to it for the whole day, but you want to throw your dogs on, you can do that, or your veggie burgers, or your chicken.
Right, so I agree with the shared, having one area where anybody can cook and kind of take turns. For now, since we don't have, what do you, Bill, are they all rented often, or can we set aside one of the 3 grilling areas as, basic families who aren't reserving a space can use this, and then the other 2 are permitted, or what's your thought?
There, the Riverside one, the one that's furthest out near the river, that one is probably rented the most.
Okay.
It's the most scenic. The other 2, it's not like every weekend all 3 of them are rented. It's, so there is an opportunity, I guess, and I think what you're suggesting is that maybe we designate one area that's not rented and make that kind of a common area, and maybe add more picnic tables in there. So that's something we could try without costing anything.
But again, it's not about the cost. It's about people staking a claim to the site. So in other words,
Right, well, you can't stake
you
a claim
can't
to-
stake a claim and say, this is for me, and I got all my stuff set up here for the day, and it's just for me, my family, my friends, unless you get a permit. So that, to me, that's the issue, right? It's not about, not getting a permit. It's about what happens to those people who aren't getting a permit and then are sort of taking it over without a permit and saying it's mine, and I have a right to it.
I agree with that for the grill, but if somebody sits down
And
at
the
a table,
tables.
they're not going to move.
But if it's permitted, they would have to move.
Oh, if it's permitted, they have to move. It's in
So
the
then
permitted
it
area.
makes sense to
Have other
permit all those sections, and then maybe have some communal section that's separate from that, so it's very clear that this is the communal section, and these 3 sections you have to have a permit for. And if you're under 20, are you not charging for under 20, or?
Right now, we don't charge for under 20, but that doesn't mean somebody, again, doesn't
And we might
stake a
lower
claim to
that
the
number.
area for their 12 people for the day, and then they don't pay, and somebody who, again, wants, to me, if you want to reserve the area, and it's yours, no matter how many people you have, you're staking a claim
charge.
to that, it seems
Right.
to me that there should be a charge. So that's what I'm suggesting, we change that in the code. If we want to just permit the 2 areas or something like that, or just say only 2 per weekend will allow to be permitted, and we're going to leave one open for a communal, then, we could do it that way. I'm not opposed to that. I'm just saying, I'm concerned about how people are sort of, I'm not going to say abusing, because it's not abuse, but you know what I mean? It's like they're taking advantage taking advantage of the fact that they don't have to get a permit, and then it doesn't seem like, it doesn't seem
But they're
right.
not sharing with everybody else.
Correct, right.
So
It's
if you
like,
don't
it's
have a
mine.
permit, you have to share.
Right,
the grill.
I mean, that, and that's, you know, again, maybe that's how we clarify it, you know, if you don't have a permit for the area, it's not all yours.
Right, I just think we should keep one open, because otherwise we're gonna have 15 people a day coming down with their own grills again, dumping the coals wherever, and so I think there should be one set aside. We can make one in the other area or anywhere else, just specifically for that purpose, but until we get around to that, I think we should keep one of the three communal.
That's fine, I think that's a good idea.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Good? Okay,
And then then the other two.
Okay.
Then only permit the other two.
So I think signage is going to be an important part of this, obviously, because you can have the law, but what happens in practice is probably still going to continue to happen if it isn't abundantly clear the scenario that the board is contemplating. But that's, as far as amending the law, if that's something the board wants to pursue, that's certainly easy enough to draft up, I think.
okay.
And we have to have some kind of educational campaign so people are aware that there is a change, that you now have to get a permit and all that
Right,
stuff.
so I think that, Bill, for you, for posting in that, you know, that larger kiosk as you enter the park, and then maybe also separately in the little mini kiosks that are by each picnic area, I think it'd be helpful for all of them to have like the full-blown weekend permitting schedule in those little things, and then if there's the one that's communal, and that's the one that we identify, and if it's the one that's closest to the road, if that makes the most sense, you know, then maybe what we do is see if we can, if we have the tables on hand, we could add a few more tables over there to make it more like a communal setting, and then, again, the other areas are the ones that we permit. Does
And
that,
Yeah, and while we're at it, a couple residents have been asking about having more picnic tables toward the north end.
so I mean, it's just a matter of what we have. I mean, I see some of the tables that we ordered just 2 years ago are already not in great shape, and I don't know if, you know, what exactly is happening with those tables, but they're like warping. So, we'll have to see what we have on hand. I know that we were trying to get ADA accessible tables, which we didn't always have. So, you know, that's what we ordered last, 2-3 years ago. So we'll have to see what we have available right now. Otherwise, everything, just think,
Yeah,
whatever
I
you
get it.
think. The supply chain right now is long.
Right, even for
We
the wood
are-
to make one.
For everything, right. And, you know, a lot of, we don't even, not even using wood, but the composite or whatever that we use, you know, that they use for the tables, everything is just very, very, very slow. You know, people have been asking, when are you gonna get this fixed? When are you gonna get that fixed? We can't even get prices to get the fences fixed. I mean, we've been trying to, you know, work on getting fences fixed, and we can't get prices to get the fences fixed. So, and that's, again, that's basically because everybody is just so backed up from the pandemic. Throughout the pandemic, people were doing the work, and then the supply chain was slow, and now, you know, going forward, it hasn't slowed down. You know, we haven't seen a slowdown. So we've been working on that for quite some time. So we can look into getting more tables. Go ahead, Bill.
Just two things. I think just getting back to the common area of a picnic area, I think it's a bit unrealistic to think that different groups are going to share a grill. I don't see that happening. I
No,
think
that's not gonna work.
actually cause more problems, because now I think you have to have it one way or the other. Either the picnic areas there are permit only, or to grill, or they are open to first come, first serve. And we could put different picnic areas into Lewis Angle, but there would be no grilling allowed. Because if you put, you know, if I've got a group of 15, I don't need to get a permit to use one of the things. I could go and just claim that area. And that's gonna really kind of, if I got a group of 15 people and you're coming over with a family of 4, are you really gonna be comfortable coming into that area to use the grill and share it with a group of 15? I just don't see that. I think it's unrealistic. And just a comment on the picnic tables, as you said, Supervisor Luttenberg, we are trying to order some picnic tables for the village, and they are 6 to 8, even 10 weeks out in obtaining those tables. So they take a long time. At the end of the summer for that happens.
Okay.
All right, so, I mean, so I guess we're back to families bringing their own barbecue grills if it's just 4 people,
So maybe we have the shared ash can.
at the very least.
I mean, the other thing that we could do is, right now, I don't think we permit bringing, you're not allowed to bring your own grill down there.
Well, we're trying to get rid of that because they were
Correct.
dumping the ashes and leaving hot things.
Right.
And
So
that's why we built the grills.
Correct. So the other thing that we could think about is shorter timeframes. You can't get it for the whole day. Maybe, again, you can reserve it for a couple hours. You reserve the grill for a couple hours at a time. So you're still reserving the grill for your group, but your grilling time is, window is, I don't know. That's,
How quickly does it take you to process a permit request?
To process a permit?
Yeah, if somebody requests one on Thursday for the weekend, are you able to get that to them, or that's too short a notice? Just curious.
Well, everything is done online, so as long as they make the payment, it can be done, within a few minutes.
Yeah, so I think that's an important point for the signage to make. If somebody shows up and all the grills are open, if they could just log on and pay and then use the grill, I think that's
Well,
added
it
benefit.
has to get approved, so when they log on, basically what they're doing is they're putting in a
Reserving.
request.
Right.
And then we see that request, and then we reach out to them and be like, okay, we got your request, this is what the fee is, once you pay the fee, you get the permit. And then we post the permit down there at the site, saying this area is reserved for this date and time.
I mean, right now, we'd like to have everything finalized by the Wednesday before the weekend, so we can make sure that we're appropriately staffed.
Right.
So it doesn't, sometimes things change, like because of the weather, and people cancel because of the weather, and then people add things because things change around, somebody canceled, somebody else wanted it. So it does shift around sometimes at the last minute, but, again, a lot of the things are changing as a result of more online options, but I don't know, we do have, obviously rec has staff on the weekends, but I don't know if they're able to approve on the weekends, and accept fees, Bill, can you comment on that?
Yeah, so on Saturdays, they can do that. Sundays, no. But Saturdays, we can approve and take the fees and process. And so, I think what's going on here is basically what I was, saying
just gonna go easy.
previously, is that the demand is kind of, it's a new demand for the use of the park. And people want to go there and they want to grill, and we don't have facilities to accommodate what people want. We have 3 areas which are required to have a permit. And, some people know that, some people do it, and it works out fine. But then you get other people that just show up with their grills and roll it onto the grass and create their own little barbecue. So it's a problem for sure. If we have the policy, which we do, about no outside grills, you really only have 3 areas that people can grill. And that is not meeting demand.
So maybe we allow people to have their grills, but we have to put more ash cans. I mean, I think the other issue is, is this park supposed to have 8 million people grilling? Is that safe? And is that, the best, is that the best use of a park? I mean, it is a great park, and people love it. So maybe it is.
It is traditionally what's been going on down there for the last
Right.
decade.
Right.
Since the spray park went in,
Right.
it's been
Right.
a lot of family picnics,
Right. Everybody
all
loves it.
different. They were all bringing their grills in the beginning when Jacob was a lifeguard down there.
Right.
So, I mean, traditionally, it's families go down and gather. They're not all necessarily from Ossining, but it's a lot of families that gather down there.
Right.
And one other thing, you can't, people will go out to a park to spend a day, so you can't say,
2 hours, 2 hours.
Yeah, 2
Well, I was
hours.
saying 2 hours for the grill, like you have rights to the grill for 2 hours, and then, let the grill be used by somebody, I don't know. Like, you can't be sitting there cooking all day long.
Oh, yeah, they can.
Yeah, oh, yes. It don't take all day, you know, you put a couple of hot dogs on, you go sit on your blanket and BS a while and come back. But it's not a 2-hour thing or 3-hour thing, it's, I don't think that'll work.
Well, the only other thing I can think is communal ash cans and let people bring their own grills. And then we permit all of the picnic areas, you know, the grills are required to have a permit to use them on the weekends. And it can also be on the weekends, because I know people do use them during the week, and maybe that's not as much of an issue.
I don't think it
I
is.
don't think it's an issue, and I know people do that. So for the weekends, you need a permit to use the grilling areas, and then ash cans we allow people to bring their own grills in a certain area. I mean, maybe we just designate a certain area.
But you can always ask for a time, you know, not that, ask the person how long you plan to stay, you know. If it's for a morning or evening or
Right.
whatever, but you don't have to tell them that they can't stay, but if you need to know, you can ask on their ticket, how long.
And we did talk about that at one point, where we just sort of said half days. You know what I mean? Like, you could have it for a half day versus full day, but,
Yeah, that's,
I mean,
Well, that way more people can reserve it.
which I think, you know, it could be an option, certainly. But I still think that if you want to reserve a space for any length of time, that it should require a permit, and it should require, you know, again, if you're reserving it, if you want to stake it out for your use, you need to ask for permission to do that in advance so that you get the permit.
It would be nice if they could get an on-demand permit the way Greg was suggesting, where, you know, you get down there, you say, wow, you know, I'd like to, or, hey, it's nice, I don't want to go barbecue with my family, let me look online, see if this is available.
Right.
Oh, it is, let me reserve it.
It would be nice. I don't know if that's a possibility, but it doesn't sound like it is.
Maybe we could agree aspirationally for next summer, we could try
Yeah.
to get to that point.
Yes,
That's
it's certainly an idea. Maybe, well, I think most of these things are going to be aspirational to a certain extent for next summer, because it's going to take us, by the time we get our local law passed, even just to change it, it's going to be however many days away from now.
some kind of signage gonna have to go.
Signage, all those things, and the signage takes time, everything takes time, it's not, nothing's overnight.
Well, and also I think we are probably going to have to revisit this conversation if we do relocate the bathroom to the southern end of the park. So, which we hopefully will be able to accomplish within the next 2 years or so. So, you know, in terms of any permanent changes or additional grills or grilling areas or whatever, that may be something the board may want to hold off discussing until that bigger,
Right.
more permanent site plan change to the park.
Absolutely.
We're just trying to stop people from arguing now.
Yeah.
Just put a sign, play nice, share.
Honestly, at the very least, I just feel like people should get, I mean, even if we don't charge people for the permits, I think that they should just be required to get a permit to reserve the space. This is how I feel about, you know, the unique area. Just permit the area, even if we're not charging them. I honestly don't think it's about the money. I think it's just about thinking and planning ahead and, you know, having a right to this public space that, you know, you're kind of taking over for a day. So there's, you know, a combination of sort of giving people access to those areas and also making sure that everybody has access, you know, like trying to balance like the birthday parties with just people who want to just hang out with their family and friends, you know.
Short term, it seems like the best way to go, especially considering, I completely forgot what you just brought up, considering that things are gonna change and things are gonna move, it just makes sense to permit it all for now, and then when everything is finally in place, then we'll know what we have, and whether it makes sense to have a common area, or whether it makes sense to continue to permit everything.
We could possibly, you know, even do like we're doing with the boat ramp where we have a QR code there.
Right.
So if somebody walks up there on a Saturday and it's like, oh wow, it's not reserved today, and the signage tells them, well, if you want to use this, you have to make a reservation. Well, you scan the QR code, and they at least we have their name, and we can, you know, on Saturday, and you know, we do have staff in on Sunday. We did have them during the summer hours. That's only what we're talking about here. is to take a look at those requests that come in, and that we can charge people right then and there.
Right, if
That
they
would
pay
be
with a
good.
credit card, then they could just reserve it right away. That would be ideal, I think.
Yeah, I think that'd be great.
Yep.
All right, so here's what I'm going to ask. I'm going to ask Bill, that last offer, if you could sort of, give us a little bit of a plan, maybe?
Flesh it
And then, flesh it out a little bit for what that could look like, if that's realistic. And then we could try to mesh that with Christie helping us clean up the ability to get the permits and then simultaneously consider what a communal or shared area looks like, if it's possible or not, how that would look, and whether it's just ash cans and we allow people to bring their grills since they're doing it anyway, and maybe designate areas so that we can have that happen safely.
Okay.
So kind of it's kind of a mixed bag, I think, approach to the park, right?
And I have one more question, not on this topic, but you're saying the kayaking tours are going to be Friday?
Yes.
Okay, the Fridays are very, very, very overwhelmingly busy at the park. Can you shift that to either Saturday or Sunday? As far as I think we're going to be overwhelmed with parking and everything else going on. Is it, imperative that those happen on Friday?
Well, that's what we put it in, and we marketed it because of the concerts. It's only for 3 Fridays. The first one got rained out, so it's only for 2 more. And
Okay.
it's a maximum of 10 people, so it's
Oh,
not
all right.
a really huge impact.
Okay.
And then just the update, I think they're working on, they poured the pad for the kayak rack, and they're putting together the racks, which will hopefully at some point be rentable for the season, I think, is what Bill is envisioning. And then they also poured a pad for our garbage containers, our refuse containers, which we'll now be able to have 2, and at some point, we're going to hopefully have it fenced in again. This is that supply chain issue that I talked about. Suburban Carting, which is our carting company, has had agreed to pay for that, the fencing portion of it, and that will hopefully also help ultimately with some of our garbage issues, because we do have people who are illegally dumping, and it's not something that we have been able to catch. But we also have a lot of people who, talk about a lot of garbage down there. And we have, I think, 26 total refuse containers between the recycle and the garbage containers along the beach there, which is an awful lot. So I would just ask that people consider, if the one that's not right in front of your face, right closest to you is full, maybe go look for one that's not quite so full. And then that'll help, because a lot of times, some of the garbage, although we have less of a problem now than we used to, because the garbage containers used to just be open without tops on them. If you see a top fall off, put it back on, because otherwise the birds and other animals can get to it more easily, and they are often also guilty of spreading the food waste that's in detritus around.
There are a few raccoons down there.
There's raccoons and
And the
there's
seagulls love to
gulls.
pick it apart, and the
Crows.
crows love to pick it apart, yes.
Yes. So it's, a lot of the times it just gets exacerbated by things of that nature. And we just ask everybody to chip in, and if you can't find a garbage can, it's a really busy day at the park, we ask that you carry out your garbage with you. That a lot of parks are carry in, carry out. We do take care of that. We have put more staff on, since we know, obviously, the demand for our parks exploded during the pandemic, and we do have more staff on the weekends now than we used to. Some of our staff was, we lost we lost them working for us during the pandemic, and we had to fill a couple of empty spots. So again, we do have people working now in greater quantity and more hours than we used to. And hopefully that will help with the problems, but we also ask for everybody to just take personal responsibility for their actions and make sure that they keep the park the way that they would like to see it when they get there. The beach. So we do have somebody doing water quality testing, started in June, early June. I believe that the county requires at least 8 weeks of testing data, and I think there has to be 5 days in a row after a rain event. I don't know if that happened this past rain event or not, but we anticipate having some feedback about the water quality. The students at Austin High School have been testing it for years with Riverkeeper and with the environmental club at the high school, and there have been many calls for many years to open up the beach, and, you know, obviously there's, as Bill mentioned, there are a number of different steps that we have to take to do that. One of the first ones was to determine where the outfall from the water treatment plant was and sewer treatment plant was, and we found that it was far enough, in fact, by looking at some of the bathymetric drawings and working with the county, that it was far enough away to allow for the potential safe opening of a beach based on the water quality testing. So we're going to continue looking at that and working with the county to see what we can do, as we continue also working on, with our, you know, for our grant proposals to improve the facilities down there, so that if we were to have a beach down there open officially and permitted, that it would be a lovely facility. But, you know, Bill did raise the point of access. Right now, we have very open policy. We don't restrict our park, our beach, our spray pad, our playground, thank you, playground area, to residents. Anybody can come, and, you know, everybody loves it, but sometimes the demand may outpace our ability to keep up with demand, and I believe if we do, are able to open the beach for swimming, that we are gonna have to consider restrictions, like resident-only restrictions, and how that would have to play out. So, as much as none of us like to turn away visitors, because we love visitors, we may have to consider that moving forward. So, just like the,
Madam Supervisor, wasn't there one time, some people from Pace University checking the water?
Riverkeeper,
Oh,
I
it
don't
was
know,
the Riverkeeper?
I don't know about Pace.
No, Pace was doing the,
At Kemmy's Cove.
Oh, Kemmy's
Yeah.
Cove.
Floating things?
Yes.
Yeah.
They were doing something at Kemmy's Cove, which is a little further away.
Oh,
a little-
okay.
it's
I
just
just-
south of, yeah. Yes, no, you're right. Pace did definitely do something like that. And then, because, yeah, Pace has done a couple of different things, including water quality and I think the
they were doing the
Cantago
tidal estuary
River.
areas.
But that wasn't, yeah, it wasn't just water quality. It was some other things. They were looking for specific, I think, what was living there.
It's been a while, I don't remember.
Yeah, it was,
what-
but then, and then also, I think when Sue Donnelly was supervisor, there was a dive team that went down to see what the bottom looked like. So I know that, you know, again, that Bill mentioned what was the quality of the, I guess the sand or the base underneath. So that was also something that's come up, and I think when they went down there, you know, there's definitely, I mean, a lot of stuff does wash up. There's no doubt. We get huge trees.
All the time.
Trees washing up.
In
A lot
every
of things
corner.
do wash up because, I don't know, because of the way that the water works, the tide works. So it's gonna, you know, that's gonna be an ongoing issue, and again, I'm sure that the county is gonna wanna weigh in on that in terms of if it's, you know, safe or not for, to have a swimming beach there. So we will continue to work on that. It's certainly our objective to try to come up with a way to offer that to our public, but it's not tomorrow. So meanwhile, we ask people to please not swim at a beach where it is not allowed by the county. And while it is not a local law that you can't swim there, it may not make sense to do so until we get approval from the county. Did you want to say anything else? Did you want to say anything else? So we're going to continue with our ranger, and if the board, you know, is interested in thinking about some other kind of staffing down there, let me know, but it's not a police enforcement issue.
I think the ranger reminding people and pointing to our beautiful big red new sign in
Two.
dual language. Two, one on each side? Mm-hmm. Good. So, you know, it used to be enough for Jacob to go and tell them there's no swimming allowed here.
Right.
So hopefully
That was just
that'll
on
help.
weekends?
He was there all the time.
The ranger, what's his name?
I don't know who the
Richard,
new one
Richard.
is.
Our new ranger is Richard,
Richard,
correct?
Correct.
Richard what?
Richard's last name is
Lewis.
Lewis.
And he go around, does he carry 6 guns? 'Cause he
I believe he carries no guns.
go down, go down,
That's it, nobody's leaving.
Water guns.
no,
Water guns, yeah.
it's not gonna
All
work.
right, well, let's see how that helps and go.
Okay.
from there.
Okay, so thank you. Is there any, does anybody else have any other questions for our superintendent of Parks and Recreation? All right, fantastic. Thank you so much. And we'll continue the conversation. And I don't think you, I know you said the rec advisory board had been out there recently to take a look, and most of the report was very positive, that people are really enjoying the use of the park. So we're very happy to hear that as well.
Yeah, they, members of the rec advisory board reported that the park looked great, was very busy. Other than some garbage issues, they thought that the park was, outstanding and providing a great place for people to go to and families. So a lot of families were there, which was
Yeah.
nice to hear.
Oh, and also we recently moved our flagpole over closer to the stage, and we also got a new porta-john, a couple new porta-johns in there to hopefully get better service for those 2 areas, two porta-johns that are at the southern end of the park, until we get a new bathroom down there.
Okay.
Okay.
And Bill, I'm looking forward to hearing how the camp kids like the disc golf. I'm still interested in seeing if we can pursue that.
Yeah, okay, I'll let you know.
Okay, so with that, thank you so much, Mr. Garrison, and we will be in touch with you soon. Moving right along. Have a good night. Bye-bye.
Bye.
It is grant season. My office has been hard at work churning out grant applications to various sources of funding, including the Everest of grant applications, the consolidated funding application, which is due in late July. I'm going to turn it over to Victoria to summarize some of the grants we've recently applied for and what we have on our to-do list for upcoming grant deadlines. As you can imagine, we look at all the many sources of grant funding against the many planned projects we have in our capital programs budget, but also some of the projects that may emerge throughout the year, and try to pair up best fits as they arise. Victoria Caffarelli.
Hello, thank you. Okay, so as the board knows, we've also been in the process of working with our planner and some of the documents that we have that list out projects that we would like to accomplish, like the document that was produced by the Recreation Advisory Board and our capital plan, and also some plans and projects that our Parks Woman has been working on. So that's been a useful tool as we sort of come across grant opportunities, sometimes with very quick deadlines, we have to turn around really fast, to sort of reference some projects that are items that are on our to-do list and may be good fits for these funding opportunities. Most recently, that came across with the SAM, State Municipal Facilities, grant applications through Senator Reagan Melnick's office. We did go to the Recreation Advisory Board to ask them for sort of their top 3 choices. The way that this grant funding source works is that it's a discretionary funding source for capital projects. And in the past, we have prioritized projects in our parks, like the Cedar Lane dock and some of the electricity improvements at Cedar Lane Park. So we asked the Recreation Advisory Board for sort of their top 3 requests for this potential funding source. They came back to us with improvements to the Cedar Lane field to make it, to accommodate a full-size soccer field, since that doesn't exist yet, I think, in any of the town or village parks. Upgrades to the Cedar Lane bathrooms, or totally rehabbing them to be compostable toilets, and either the Ryder or Gerlach Park playgrounds, which do need to be replaced. So when we received these from the Recreation Advisory Board, we decided to move forward with most of the requests for this grant funding source, except for the Cedar Lane Park field, which we sort of reprioritized for the CFA applications, which I'll talk about in a couple minutes, and also decided to move forward with the Ryder Park playground, since that is on our capital plan for a little bit farther out. The Gerlach Park playground does need to be accomplished more soon than that. And these grants do take time to process through the Dormitory Authority of the State of New York. It's a little bit of a process, so it's not going to be money that we're going to see right away. So we did move forward with applications for the Cedar Lane bathrooms and the Ryder Park playground, and then we added to the request that we put into the senator's office the renovations or rehab of the ice house at Cedar Lane Park. That's a project we've pursued funding for in the past, and we have not been very successful with other sources of grant funding. So we figured that this opportunity that's a bit more discretionary, where you don't necessarily have to hit all the boxes of, what the recreation superintendent of the state wants to see, or if you hit this requirement for this different entity. So seemed like a good opportunity to try to get funding for something that we haven't been so successful with in the past. So those are in. The deadline was June 30th, so it was at a time when we didn't necessarily have a board meeting that week, but we did submit those applications, and they are now in the senator's office hands, so hopefully we'll hear some good news if they're going to pursue one or two or maybe all of those requests. We're not sure yet. Then looking ahead to the CFA applications, the consolidated funding applications, the Cedar Lane Park Field project, we decided would probably be a good application for the parks, the Environmental Protection Fund parks funding. We've applied for other projects in the past, and the feedback that we've gotten from the state is that for that funding source, they really like to see very traditional parks projects. And the Cedar Lane Park Field certainly is one of them. And so we decided we're hopefully going to be applying for not just renovating the field to accommodate soccer, but also to have a bubble over the field so it could accommodate 3-season use, because that's a suggestion that our recreation superintendent has made in the past. We've certainly heard as part of the comprehensive plan that families with middle school age children want more recreation resources that their kids can go to at any time of the year. So that seems like a really good opportunity for this sort of larger funding source, more traditional parks project. And also some good news, the match requirement for Ossining is actually lower than the match requirement for just the general funding opportunity because of the, there's more than 10% of individuals who live in the 10562 zip code are under the poverty level. So that's some good news for our numbers there.
And also, I think the consolidated funding application tends to be a bigger grant opportunity. This is a much larger project, so it's not something that we could most likely accomplish with capital funding, with our, through our operating budget, or through, any kind of, sometimes we reallocate fund balance to take care of some of these bigger projects. To take care of like some of the parks projects, but it's not something that we're, anticipating. It would be a bigger ask, and we're still waiting to get some sense of what the budget would be from our park superintendent. So we don't yet know what that is. But again, I think a lot of times we look at what are the funding sources, what are the pieces that are in our capital plan, what have we applied for in the past that we have or haven't been successful in, and how can we sort of retool what we're trying to accomplish within the confines of the grant structure. So that's where we would apply for this or that pending whatever's available and what the timing is.
And it also may be, hopefully we'll be successful this year, but something that we have heard, at least in, different classes and things that we've attended in the past, is that with these parks grant applications, usually you put it in once, you may not be successful the first time around, but at least you get some feedback from the funding source to sort of do better next time. And also the parks projects, they're very interested in projects that have widespread or have a lot of community support. And so we've certainly heard from the recreation, especially if you have a recreation advisory board or some sort of, citizen group that is supporting some particular capital improvement, we certainly have a lot of documentation from the Rec Advisory Board that this is something that they're interested in. So we're hopeful it'll be successful.
I think you mentioned, but again, one of the big parts of that is a full-size soccer field.
Correct.
Which I
Yes.
don't think exists right now
Yeah.
in our town parks anywhere. So
Yeah.
that's another thing that we're kind of lacking. And so this would be, again, full season. I certainly think, just looking at, only just looking at turf, I've mentioned a lot of times the turf fields at the school district, and how incredible the use is. You know, having gone from the many years of, the grass, and I'm not, you know, I don't tend to be a big fan of
Plastic
turf.
fan.
But, and I was a big fan of sledding at the high school. I really miss the sledding. Everybody missed the sledding, but when you compare how much sledding there's been and what the opportunity for sledding is,
Yeah.
now, especially given climate change versus how many days of the year are being used by the community, for the fields at, you know, the lower fields or even the upper fields at the high school and the middle school, it's just incredible how much more use they get out of those turf fields, so.
Right.
And
And it could be an opportunity also for the town to earn revenue, which I know is something the superintendent has highlighted in the past in budget capital planning discussions and things like that, so.
Looking
seems
to make it a
promising.
turf field at Cedar Lane?
I
I believe
think
so.
that's what
Yeah.
would be under the,
The plan is for a turf field with a dome, multi-use kind of field that it could be used almost all year round for that underutilized space. And it would give, you know, ASO and all the other soccer leagues one more field to work with. And if it's a full-length field, maybe 2 fields for the younger kids. Because we have fields that are overused now. We don't have enough fields for all the soccer use that we get. And I'm just talking soccer. I mean, if you add it as a multi-purpose field, it would be more than soccer. But we have a lot of need for soccer, and we don't have enough fields. And the fact that Cedar Lane is available, it's the right length, width, and we just need to get some turf on it and then a bubble on it, and it's a multi-use all year round for revenue purposes, for the community. I mean, it's just a huge opportunity, and I know Rec, I haven't been there in a while, but Rec has been talking about this for almost as long as I've been on Rec, so it would be a really huge deal for the community.
So then the other project that we're considering for consolidated funding application, also through the same source, the Parks grant, is for a, basically like a drainage study for Ryder Park. So as we've been going through this process of starting to, of identifying and sort of collating all these different documents we have to look at potential projects, something that keeps sort of rising to the surface with Ryder Park is that we always have drainage challenges everywhere we look. Okay, we need to fix this part of the park. Oh, well, it gets wet there and we don't know what to deal with it. And, oh, but we also, this area is a problem. Oh, but we have, you know, there's a habitat there and there's frogs and snakes and all sorts of things living in it. So there's certain, that seems to rise to the surface as the biggest challenge or obstacle sort of to overcome to address some of the other capital improvement needs at Ryder Park. So this parks grant funding source also allows for pre-development plans and planning money. So we do have Dan Ciarcia, our consulting engineer, who's going to be developing for us a scope of work and a budget for that sort of study so that it's something that we can build upon in the future to address some of the other capital needs of the park and make sure that we're addressing them well so that we can continue to use the park in good ways for the community, but also to be sensitive to the environmental concerns and the habitats that have developed in Ryder Park, because that's also something that we obviously would like to preserve and maintain to the best extent possible.
So we're working in conjunction with our wetland expert?
So,
That-
so we actually brought in Mike Rubo from
Right.
Pace University. He came out there and met with, I believe, Donna, Sharrett, Gareth?
I think
I think
Gareth,
Gareth
yeah.
was there, and Valerie Monastra, our planner, to take a look at it started out looking at the pond, and Mario was also there, to take a look at the pond. What do we need to do? Is this something we need to dredge? Is this something that we need to protect? You know, what is it that we can do? How are we going to disturb what's there right now? How are we going to preserve? Where is the water coming from? So there's a lot of different aspects of that. We also have drainage issues behind the tennis court. So that, you know, that is now the dog run, and we have complaints about the dog run. We have issues with the tennis court not having proper drainage underneath it, which is why there was a huge crack and it's not a tennis court anymore. So if we wanted to replace it as a tennis court, you know, what would we need to do to fix those areas? that is also most protective. We have issues behind, there's
I-
water runs through the park. I'm just saying this for the public, not for you. I'm looking at you, but, it's for the public where we have, water running around our baseball fields, and we've had issues of crossing over and accessing the fields safely. What about the driveway, the parking lot, rather, the area behind our parks, maintenance facility? So we have a lot of issues of drainage, and it's all tied together. We have Cantico River tributary, we have, all sorts of different pieces of that puzzle, which we're labeling as drainage, but really have to do with all of these different inputs. So we believe that what would be the best is to do an engineering study to understand what are all of the different pieces of where's the water coming from? What are the impacts of changing it or not changing it or making the best of what we have right there? And how can we do it in a way that's protective of our wetlands, but also, allows us to make the most of our parks and the types of uses that we have there now and/or what we imagine or can envision for the future.
Right, and also the way that it would work is that, if we were successful at getting the grant funding, we would then have to go out to RFP to select the engineering firm that would be performing the study, which is when, we would start to identify what are their levels of expertise, what sorts of specialists are they bringing
We're
in.
calling it
So-
drainage study or wetland/drainage study?
And we don't have to call it
We don't have to
drainage.
call it.
We can call it something else.
Or just engineering study.
Engineering study of,
Something else, huh?
Right,
engineering study of the wet areas,
Right, right.
wetlands and drainage. And again, some
The
of it
wetlands,
is.
if you put wetlands and drainage, I think it makes it more
Yes,
appealing.
yes. And I think,
Wetland protection and drainage for usage.
right. So we'll come up with a creative way to call it something like that. And then, again, we think that those are some of the best applications that we can look at for the
For the CFA.
for the CFA. And these are, again, I think I said the Everest of grant applications because they are very, very intense.
Yes,
grant
very
applications,
cumbersome.
so.
Lots of questions.
Okay, so, and then we just heard that the TAP application opened up, which is the road improvements.
Transportation Alternatives Program.
Thank you. Transportation Alternatives Program. This is something that we had considered applying for a number of years ago for the 133 bike lane and bike and pedestrian improvement on 133 with Town of Newcastle, Village of Ossining. And this is like the big mama of grants. So we're hoping that Sam Schwartz is going to work with us. They're the ones who would work with us on the bike lane on North State Road. And they had actually done some pro bono work for us just to figure out how we could address Hawks when we repaved Hawks to make it more friendly for cyclists. So we're hoping that we can pull together an application this time for the TAP application, because that would be the big one. And we did put in money already through the federal government. And then this is also federal dollars, but a bigger piece of the pie that could all come together ultimately to help address this large project that would be an improvement. The way that this project started was that somebody actually approached the town and said, why doesn't the DOT ever improve Route 133? They said they were never going to do anything to make it any better. There are drainage issues, there's little brooks. And this was an opportunity to connect up our various open space assets in an easterly, westerly direction, because it's not exactly east-west, from downtown Ossining over to the North County / Empire State Trail, and make it more bike and pedestrian friendly. It connects with the Old Croton Aqueduct. It would connect with the Briarcliff Peekskill Trailway, potentially a connector, if we ever get there, from Ryder Park up through T-Town, and then all the way over to the North County Trailway. And so this was part of the Millwood Ossining Go study. It was something that the state was very interested in working with us on, and had done some engineering studies for us preliminary, and was interested in continuing to do that work. So we've presented again before in front of NIMTIC, the New York Metropolitan Transportation Council, and we were advised that TAP would be a good source for this project. So we're hoping that now that it's opened up, that we can get a grant application together for that. with the blessing of Town of Newcastle and Village of Austining.
Thankfully, that one's not due until like the end of September, so
Yeah.
it's not too many grant applications, one on top of another, but it's very exciting to see it open up again, for sure.
Any questions from the board? Or comments? Or discussion? Ideas, thoughts? Anything else you want us to consider?
I was kind of wondering how Victoria can remember all the
I don't know.
Amazing.
I can't answer that question.
I was hoping we could also look at the drainage around our organic garden
Yes.
and adding another volleyball court because that one's constantly busy. So if we could get that area a little more stable, I would like to see that come to fruition. I think that's a very utilized area that's not meeting its needs.
Right, well, the community garden definitely has asked us specifically about addressing drainage, and we have talked about that, I think even with Dan Ciarcia, to figure out if there's something that we can do specifically in-house also to address that. So we're hoping.
I think the Parks Foreman also may have included in his capital proposal last year to consider doing that work in-house, if I remember correctly, but I don't remember all the details.
Okay. Yeah, I'd just like to
So
make sure it
hopefully that's
extends
something-
over to that other little area right next to it,
Right,
Which might need to be repaved, so,
which needs to be rebate.
correct.
okay.
So, yeah, and so obviously tonight I don't have all of the budget numbers and things together, but that is what we're going to be working on now with Dan Ciarcia and Bill Garrison, of course, and Mario. So the board will have to adopt resolutions before the grant deadline. So we anticipate having that for your July 27th meeting, but certainly if anything comes up in the interim, we will update the board.
All right, so with that, we're moving on to a very short subject of discussion, just joking. The New York State Marijuana Regulation and Taxation Act. A few meetings ago, we held a town hall meeting on this act and whether or not the town of Austining should consider opting out of allowing marijuana dispensaries and on-site consumption. The board has now had a chance to mull over what we heard from the public during that meeting and after that meeting, so it seems like a good time for us to discuss how we would like to move forward. So I'll just open up to the board to say what's on your mind, what you're thinking about. Should we opt out? Shouldn't we? I know that, we just recently learned from the Examiner and other local papers. I believe North Castle has opted out. I think North Salem has opted out. We know Mount Kisco, it sounded to me like they were moving in the direction of opting out. I believe Pleasantville, Somers is opted out. I'm not sure, but I think Pleasantville may be moving in that direction. I believe, although Briarcliff I don't think has talked about it, that they may be moving in that direction. I'm not sure where the Village of Austining is. I don't know if that they're planning to consider opting out. They may opt in, Village of Briarcliff may opt out. Again, I don't think these are anything set in stone. But if, if it's something that we do want to do and we do want to opt out, then what would happen, well, I'm going to open up to our council, Tom and Donna, to just refresh everybody's memory about what the process would be. If, again, we only have one chance to opt out, so go ahead.
Right, so under the law, the board would have to, under the state law, the board would have to adopt a local law by the end of the year in order to opt out. And it would be subject to permissive referendum, meaning that if within 45 days of adopting a local law, a petition was submitted to the town clerk that contained the signatures of, I believe, 10% of the voters at the last gubernatorial election, then it would have to go to a special election for determination by the entire voting population of the unincorporated town. Because the villages will, as the supervisor mentioned, will make their own decision. So what we're really talking about here really is the unincorporated portion of the town of Austining. And so if the board does not opt out by the end of the year, the window closes. And there's no further opportunity under the law as it's currently drafted to do so. If the board does opt out, you could then subsequently decide to opt back in by local law, and there's no prohibition on that. So the only action that needs to be taken is that if the board decides that you do not want to have, and we're talking exclusively, as the supervisor mentioned, retail dispensaries and on-site consumption. There's other aspects of the law that are not even subject to this level of regulation at the local level. Processing, cultivation, cooperative licenses, distributor licenses, that's not what we're talking about here. It's just those two aspects of it, the retail and the on-site consumption.
Only thing for point of clarification, while the zoning and the, allowing having dispensaries or lounges, what do they call?
On-site consumption.
On-site consumption, would be in unincorporated. If the town were to opt out, there's another component which.
The tax revenue.
The tax revenue. A town.
Do you want me to?
Is allowed to collect a portion of the tax revenue of the whatever remaining 3% of the tax revenue that is collected.
So if the town does not opt out, and a dispensary or a retail dispensary or an on-site establishment is established within the unincorporated town, there's a 4% sales tax, and 1% of that, or 25%, the numbers all the time, so would go to the county, and the remaining 3% would go to, or 75% of that tax amount would go to the unincorporated town. If it's within the villages, the town, under the law, is still entitled to a portion of the tax revenue, even if the establishment is within the incorporated villages, and that's subject to a separate agreement that the municipalities presumably are expected to work out amongst themselves. But in the absence of an agreement, the default is 50-50. So if the village does not opt out, and there's a 4% sales tax, and 25% goes to the county, and then that remaining 3% would be split 50-50. I presumably, working with other municipalities, we would come into some sort of arrangement. If the town board decides to opt out, and the village of Ossining opts in, and then there's a dispensary or an on-site consumption establishment, the town, unincorporated town, does not get any of that tax revenue.
I don't believe it's unincorporated, though, for that part of it. In other words.
Oh, for, it would, town, okay, well,
Town general. That's what I'm saying. So I think that it's not unincorporated town. I think the unincorporated town would probably be allowed for that 3% if, no, the 3% that the municipality gets, though. 1% goes to the county.
1% goes to county.
Okay.
Okay, so the remaining 3% goes to the municipality. If it goes to the village, and then there's, and the town doesn't opt out, then the town either negotiates or defaults to 50-50. But I don't believe that's unincorporated. I believe that would be town general.
Well, what fund it goes into
Right.
is really beyond the scope of.
No, but I just want to be clear, because that, again, if town opts.
So it goes into town
doesn't-
general, not to
Correct, it goes into
unincorporated
town
fund.
general, and then 50-50 unless there's some other agreement between town general and unincorporated town for the town portion of it too. In other
That
words,
brings up the question, if
Yes.
there's a dispensary in the town unincorporated area,
Yes.
does a portion of that go to the town general?
Right,
As far as I'm aware, the law does not specify what fund it goes into.
right. So it doesn't specify, but it would
But
seem that,
following that same formula.
That formula, it
then
would
some
make
of it should go
sense.
to the town
exactly,
and general, and some of it should go to the town unincorporated.
correct, right.
That's interesting.
Exactly. So again, it would be my belief that because if you look at most towns, right, the town general is bigger than, our town is bizarre because of how little of it is
Unincorporated.
unincorporated
Right.
versus, right, everything else. So, but if you look at it, it seems that the intent of the law would be that it would go to town general, the remainder, that whatever that negotiated portion is. And then the same theoretically would hold for, if it were an unincorporated. So that's those are the basics.
And I have another question. Can we opt out on on-site consumption but opt into a dispensary?
Yes. Yeah, they're two separate.
Two separate issues?
Separate issues, two separate considerations. You would need to adopt a local law either way. Obviously, if you did them both, you would do it the law probably together. Although you could do them separately and have separate public hearings and hear what the public has to say. I imagine the conversation will be conflated, but that's certainly an option.
Right, so some of the issues have arisen that we've heard from other municipalities that, we've also considered ourselves is what's the landscape, right? So the regulatory authority isn't necessarily all put in place yet, and there's the two different, there's the one that's going to permit, and then there's the one that's going to oversee. So,
Yeah, at the state level, there's a board and then a department. So the board would make the decisions, but the department would be like the staffing, that
so like the
that pretty much
equivalent of the
supports them.
SLA, right? So
Yeah.
the, right. So
It's
the
a very
State Liquor
similar
Authority
framework, yeah.
Would be similar. So that's not in place yet. We also know that the permitting process, we assume is going to be lengthy. So just getting to, what do we think the timeline is? We've talked about this before, but just again for the board and, the benefit of the public and the discussion.
I would just add one thing briefly. It's my understanding that I think they're going to do the cannabis board within the next few weeks. So the
Okay.
composition of that will be decided relatively soon.
Okay. So that's the board, and then they would presumably then determine who the hires are for
department's
the
correct, yeah.
department, right? So that would be in place in the next few weeks, but the process for actually getting a permit may take a long time. And it's expensive. It's what, $125,000, I believe, to get a permit?
I believe that's
Or
what I've heard.
license.
I mean, I haven't seen anything confirming that, there's also promulgating regulations to implement all of this, which presumably is also in the works.
So anyway, the question is this something that can happen overnight? If we weren't to opt out, for example, and, are we looking at, a dispensary theoretically being able to open up if everything was in place by the end of the year? Or at the beginning of next year? Or is it gonna be a 2-year process? And if if the fact of the matter is that it's going to be difficult to get one of these in place, does that give us enough time without opting out to figure out what the landscape is here for the unincorporated town in terms of zoning and our own regulations?
When we talked about this a month ago, some of the documents I had seen anticipated that you wouldn't start seeing the first dispensary or on-site consumption locations until the end of 2022 or 2023. But, I think this is going to be a moving target as time goes on, and I don't know when it was anticipated that the board was being formed. If it's, this seems relatively quickly, so that may move things up. I don't know that there's necessarily a set date in stone, but it is going to be a process for permitting, certainly at the state level, not to mention then the fact that there are the abilities for local controls in terms of zoning. So you're not just looking at getting a permit from the state, which it will be a very thorough process, I imagine itself, but then if you're going for site plan approval or a special permit, whatever the board may or may not decide in this municipality or other municipalities that they want to implement, if that's even an option. So there's a lot to consider.
So, where does everybody stand?
I just think it's too much, there's so much money involved that the town could use to fill potholes, to have a permitter on the weekend for the grills, things like that. It's too much money, and even if there's a few towns around us that are opting out, I assuming Peekskill's gonna opt in, White Plains is gonna opt in, Yonkers gonna opt in, Connecticut just legalized it last week, New Jersey legalized it, so I mean, it's all around us, so I don't, I think we can come up with some reasonable zoning restrictions, but that's about as far as I'd be willing to go.
How about you, Councilman Wiltshire?
I'm thinking on it as, I think we might as well join the drummers, because it's, I don't know, if it costs $125,000 to start or get it operational, whoever does it, they're gonna work hard to make it pay. And cause who wants to just lose $125,000? So I don't know which way I would really go, but I do believe I might go with the opting in, going in with it.
I will say that one of the arguments I've heard to not opt out is because we don't want to be the ones getting the scraps of, we want to get the best, right? So the first ones of these dispensaries would be sort of the cream of the crop potentially, and then the next round might not be. I mean, again, and this is just what I've heard from, other talk elsewhere. That doesn't, that obviously there's lots of other questions that people have had about access, youth access, making it, easier if you have a dispensary, to have, access. I mean, again, I don't know if you've probably been thinking about this issue a lot more.
Yeah, I dealt with this in my
Yeah.
day job, and, yeah, I mean, the youth access thing, right? You can walk into any high school in the state and buy pot, right? Any kid can buy pot. I think the general belief was that by creating dispensaries, it actually may be a little bit harder, or at least a regulated market. You're seeing all sorts of drugs now cut with fentanyl. They're cutting one thing, could get into the pot supply. If you're having a regulated market, you're not going to have those issues. And going into these places, we went into the Massachusetts one, no kid can walk into these dispensaries. You need ID, everything gets scanned, your photo gets taken. So I think if anything, it would make possession for minors more difficult, or at least safer.
Well, the one thing about it, I do not believe that's gonna stop the illegal.
No,
Yeah, no, I don't think so either.
It's gonna keep right on going.
no, I don't think, I think there'll be two markets.
Yes.
I think the kids will still have access to
Whenever they want
know,
it, they'll,
the underground market, if you will.
right, it's gonna be
And I would
there.
love to solve that, and maybe some of the money that we get from a dispensary can help us to solve that, or at least, have a
I think that's a good idea.
more quality, more, not quality, but more clean supply, without,
A little more control over what goes out there, right?
right, quality control, thank you. A quality control over what's going, what's being sold and what's, I believe with zoning, we can control where it goes. I don't think we have, we shouldn't have it near any childcare or religious establishments. I mean, personally, I think, out toward Executive Boulevard would be my choice of where. People can pull off 9A, get what they want, pull back on 9A, and I'm not really necessarily a fan of on-site consumption. I think I'd probably like to opt out of that one at first, but allow the dispensary itself. That's kind of where I'm at.
I'm still on the fence with the whole opt-in, opt-out. I think there's some benefit to opting out now and opting in later when everything is more finalized. We know what the landscape looks like. We have our ducks in the row. We've seen what other folks in Westchester have done, and we can kind of use that knowledge to make our program better, or make our program more fit Austin. So I'm still on the fence with opting out now, opting in later. So I'm still kind of pondering.
And where am I? I've always been in favor of legalization. Always thought that regulation would make the landscape safer. You look at alcohol, and it's been legal for, however many years. And I don't necessarily know that it's that different, and it is regulated. Obviously, the federal government isn't there yet, so that's still problematic. In terms of the overall landscape and regulation. I think that there are too many options still for kids to get their hands on things, and I do think that a lot of the market has targeted youth, with things like candy-like substances that can be consumed versus, just, smoking. So I have a concern. What I don't like is that this is our only shot at opting out. It's not like something that you could do later. So I see the pull to want to do it now. And I haven't seen anything that indicates what revenue would be like for, let's just assume one dispensary, because I can't imagine we're gonna have multiple dispensaries, like, because, there's just not gonna be that much, we don't have that much, commercial, yard,
I would want to limit
acreage.
it with our zoning.
Right, so, right, but you
Definitely
can't, you
limit it with
can't
zoning.
spot zone it, right? You can't just say, okay, we can only have this here. It would have to be part of the general business district, right? And I don't know, Chris, if you could just talk about that a little bit more, the
It
zoning.
has to be a time, place, and manner restriction in the same form as zoning, so it can't make it, the term in the law is unreasonably impractical. So you basically can't zone it so that there is no feasible location where it could go. The unincorporated area is not very large, and, that it does naturally, just by virtue of its size and the way it's already structured now, there probably wouldn't be a lot of places, and so that would be something that we would look at with Valerie, the town planner, from a zoning perspective, but, what you can't do is just put restrictions on it that would make it impossible for it to exist.
Right, so anyway,
But we
back to,
could, I'm sorry.
no, that's okay. I just wanted to just finish my one point, which was just that because of that and that it would be limited, we couldn't have a lot of them. We're talking about revenue potentially from one or two, if the village had to, say, three. I have no idea what it is per shop, what that would look like when you take either 1 or 2% of the tax revenue, I'm just throwing that out. I'm guessing that the village would say, the Village of Austin would say, well, we want to negotiate, we're not giving you 50%. We'll give you 25% or 10% or something like that. And then if you had, again, another shop in unincorporated one, so you have one in unincorporated Austin. So now, what is that going to look like? 3% of the tax revenue. How does that comport with the needs of a municipality for education, for, again, I'm not sure what enforcement looks like for driving while under the influence. We don't even know yet what, a breathalyzer or something like that doesn't really exactly work for these types of things. So,
Well, the state did put in $45 million for drug recognition expert training for local municipality police officers. And I guess, as Liz mentioned earlier, if we wanted to take some of that money too, it could be something that could help.
right, but,
additionally offset.
right, and you had mentioned, filling potholes, but I don't have a sense even of what is that, does that equate to, and do you happen to know, like, per shop? Because I did ask for that information from the state, and I haven't gotten it yet, so I don't yet have any sense of what it is per shop, like, what are we really looking at from a revenue
Gonna
perspective?
be,
could
si- I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, I could get it from the places we went to in Massachusetts,
Which would
what they were getting annually.
I mean, I think that, I do think that would be helpful. I don't know if it's gonna be the be-all and end-all for.
more information,
But
it'd be
it would be important to have a sense of what our municipality would even stand to look at from a revenue perspective, and if it actually does align with what some of the needs would be for expenses.
Yeah, I can get that, sure.
Being aware that people are already smoking it and driving under the influence. And the cops are trained to try to find it at this point, but not. They don't have tools, it's true, they don't have tools.
Right, we don't have tools yet.
And I guess the revenue would also directly be affected by how many municipalities do it. If everybody has one in their own town, it's gonna be a very different number than if all the towns around us don't and, they're coming here. So,
Which is an upside from a revenue perspective, but maybe a downside from a traffic perspective, right? So, again, those are all the balances, right, that we
which
look
is
at.
why I like off 9A.
Right, but then, we have people saying they don't want to build something off of 9A because it's not safe to get it on and off 9A right now. So that's something where, like in other, when other developers come and talk to you about wanting to develop here or there, you say, okay, well, then I want you to fix up 9A if that's where you're going to be and make it safer to enter and exit. So it could be, again, an upside. You could have, a municipal improvement that could benefit everybody from something like that, where you're putting, a commercial entity into that, what's now research park area, research and
Commercial
office.
slash research, right?
I think it's office/research. I do not think it's commercial, but that's something that's come up in the comp plan that's being looked at to see if that's something that would be, improved if it were to be changed, if the zoning for that were to be changed. So, right now, I think North State Road is more likely zoned correctly where it could fit into the general business district right now. But again, that's something that we could, and would have to. The problem with North
That
State
has all
Road
childcare
is there's
facilities. I'm
childcare
not a fan of
facilities
that.
every few
Feet.
feet, basically.
Right.
So,
And I'd want to expand the general guidelines if we were gonna have it and zone it, expand the parameters from 500 feet to significantly more.
well,
That's way too small for my mind.
well, I mean, that's getting into that point of zoning it out,
Right.
right? Unless, like you
Well, I'm
said.
not zoning it out, but
So what I'm hearing is, this is what I'm gonna just say. What I hear is, we need a little more information. I feel the sense of the board is not opting out necessarily, although I'm not 100% sure, because I feel like a little fence, a little fence, a little fence.
small.
Definitely no fence, no fence, and I also have a little bit of a fence, right? So I don't think like, it doesn't seem to me like we are 100% there yet. I know a lot of other municipalities are trying to come to a conclusion mid-July. I just read that was the drop
for
dead
that.
date if, in fact, it went to a permissive referendum, which is only if we opt out, and the public then says, no, we want this to go to a vote, and you wanted it to be on the ballot for November, it would have had to have been,
I honestly don't know that those numbers are, I don't want to weigh in on other municipalities' opinions, but there's a lot of different rules with respect to elections and different timelines. And so if some municipalities adopted it now and someone put in a petition 45 days from now, I don't know that they would have enough time to put it on the referendum, but I don't want to speak to them. But for this board's consideration, what the reality is that, yes, you have until the end of the year, but at this point, you don't feel like you have to be confined to a specific deadline that's 2 weeks or a month from now, because the reality is it's not going to be on the general election ballot anyway.
So, Greg, where are you on-site consumption?
Supportive.
Okay, no, I'm asking.
With restrictions, with zoning restrictions, but supportive.
Okay, no. I'm not there.
I'm with you there.
Neither am I, I'm not for,
dispensaries seem to be more,
my thing is.
I'm
my
okay with
idea,
dispensary,
if
I'm
you
not.
Go in, if you're gonna go buy it, get it and go
Go home,
anywhere, but not.
not the
state.
park.
not the park. Well, you can't smoke in the park, but that's going to keep you from chewing a gummy in the park. And then you don't have to throw your whiskey bottle on the ground. Just saying. It's complicated. We live in some complicated times, but again, ultimately, I think that there are a lot of reasons that the state adopted this. A lot of good reasons for social justice issues that I think most of us on this board, if not all of us, would support. Ultimately, a lot of those have been already just taken care of in the law to legalize marijuana. Now looking at how you get it and think about it, again, let's look at what we have in place and have had in place for many years, which is legalized consumption of alcohol. Some people would argue that, that's worse than marijuana. What are we looking at here? Is it better for us to be early adopters or later? And, if we do not opt out, how are we going to make sure that we ensure, that we make this a safe a safe establishment for anybody who comes here and benefit from the revenue in a way that serves the purpose that it's supposed to, which is to help reduce crime for purposes that, aren't necessarily big criminal acts, keep people out of prison who don't necessarily belong in prison for minor crimes, and also make sure that, again, there's an equitable distribution of resources in a way that helps uplift our society. So hopefully we will get there. I think that, we're very considerate board of all those different perspectives, and I would hope that we can come to consensus. I think we'll have to just put this on for another work session. Hopefully you can get a little more information about Massachusetts and what kind of revenue they see and how it does or does not offset some of the expenses related. So I would say that we have not come to any sort of consensus at this point. Is that fair?
Very.
Okay. Moving right along, I think we are now going to ask to take a motion to go into our special meeting. Nobody's moving that? Can I have a motion to adjourn
So
our work
moved.
session to special meeting? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed? Okay. Do we need to take a,
Roll call, yes, sorry. Councilmember Feldman,
Present.
Councilmember Shaw,
Present.
Councilmember Meyer.
Present.
Councilmember Wiltshire. Supervisor Levenberg.
here?
Okay. Our first resolution is personnel, rehire court attendant. Resolved that the town board of the town of Ossining rehires Franklin Jackson Jr., Ossining, to the part-time position of court attendant at an hourly rate of $28 effective July 6, 2021.
Motion?
So moved with, yay.
Okay, so tonight we're happy to be welcoming back Franklin Jackson Jr. from his very brief retirement from the town. Franklin recently retired from his day job with the Village of Ossining, and according to New York State retirement system rules, he needed to go off all municipal payrolls for a period of time. Now that time has passed, we're happy to be welcoming him back to the town. All those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Thank you.
Okay. Resolution declaring equipment as surplus and authorizing disposal. Resolved that the town of Ossining hereby declares the following equipment as surplus equipment at and authorizes disposal in accordance with New York State law by sale or otherwise as is. Highway Department 2001 Generac generator, serial number 2062233. Generac generator, serial number 818588. DMT generator, serial number WA50735602997.
Motion?
So moved.
These generators were recently replaced and upgraded at a few of our sewer lift stations. Our highway superintendent and water superintendent both agree that there is no use trying to rehab them for future use, so we're declaring them as surplus tonight, so we can hopefully bring in a small bit of revenue associated with their disposal. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed?
I got a question. They're no good, right? Is that what you're saying?
Correct. They've
Well,
outlived their useful life.
Okay, so what, who?
We have new ones. We have new
Who's
ones. Sir.
selling them to?
Well, it's
People
just
buy them for
disposal.
parts.
Yes.
Yeah.
People buy them for parts.
People will buy them for parts, and then if we don't get good enough auctions, then
Then we'll
we would just
scrap 'em.
dispose of,
Okay.
scrap them.
All right.
Yeah.
I just wanna know what's happening. There's no.
Why are we selling garbage
No.
again?
Yeah.
We'll be on Auctions International in a couple days. Property did everybody vote?
I think we all voted, yes.
Okay.
We did.
Property insertion agreement to Lincoln Place. Resolved that the town board of the town of Ossining authorizes the supervisor to sign the property insertion agreement with Maltz Auctions Incorporated for 2 Lincoln Place, the property to be auctioned.
Motion?
So move.
So the town entered into an agreement a few weeks ago with Maltz Auctions, Inc. for Maltz to perform online auctions of foreclosed properties as a general service. Tonight, we're approving a short agreement specific to the first property to be auctioned to Lincoln Place. We're hopeful that by working with a professional company, we will get better results at auction. And again, the delinquent taxes on this property far predate the COVID-19 pandemic. Thank you to our tax receiver, Holly Perlowitz, for shepherding us through this process to help recoup the unpaid taxes for the town, school district, and village, and also to Council Tom Adana for helping us along the way. Any questions or discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed?
Resolution modifying town board meeting locations. Whereas since April 2020, the Town of Austin Town Board and the Town Land Use Boards have held their meetings via video conferencing in accordance with Executive Orders 202.1 and 202.15, as subsequently extended, which authorize such as a result of the state of emergency established by Executive Order 202 related to the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic. And whereas on June 23rd, 2021, the governor announced that the state of emergency would expire on June 24th, 2021, and that he would not extend it. And whereas when the state of emergency expired, so did the modifications of law contained in Executive Orders 202.1 and 202.15 as subsequently extended, pursuant to which the town had been conducting its meetings via video conferencing. And whereas in accordance with applicable law and the town's practices, the town board and the town land use boards will return to in-person meetings with public attendance. And whereas prior to the pandemic, the town board's practice was to have its meetings live streamed by GoTV so that the public could view the meetings in real time without having to attend. But during the pandemic, this was not necessary because those members of the public who wished to view the meetings live could watch or listen through Zoom. And whereas due to the sudden expiration of the state of emergency, the town board has learned that GoTV will not be equipped to begin live streaming the town board meetings again for a few weeks. And whereas in order to allow members of the public to continue to view the town board meetings live without having to attend the meeting for the time being, the town board will incorporate video conferencing into its meetings. And whereas while the first floor conference room at Town Hall, 16 Croton Avenue, where the town board normally holds its work sessions, is equipped to accommodate video conferencing, the courthouse at 8688 Spring Street, where the town board normally holds its legislative sessions, is not. And whereas in order to provide video conferencing capabilities so that members of the public can view town board meetings live without having to attend, the town board desires to temporarily move all of its meetings to Town Hall, 16 Croton Avenue. And now therefore be it resolved, the following meetings of the town board will be held in the first floor conference room at Town Hall, 16 Croton Avenue, July 13th, 2021 at 7:30 p.m. Town Board Legislative Session, July 27th, 2021 at 7:30 p.m. Town Board Legislative Session, August 3rd, 2021 at 7:30 p.m. Town Board Work Session, August 10th, 2021 at 7:30 p.m. Town Board Legislative Session, August 24th, 2021 at 7:30 p.m. Town Board Legislative Session. Be it further resolved, the town clerk is hereby directed to notice said meetings as required by law.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
So, yes, thank you, Victoria Caffarelli, for reading that very lengthy resolution, but not as lengthy as some others. This was our very first hybrid meeting here at 16 Croton Avenue. Currently, we are unable to broadcast live on GoTV from this building. It's the only room currently outfitted to accommodate hybrid meetings. So until we address the live broadcast issue and adjust to our new environment, we're changing the location of our upcoming meetings to be held here at 16 Croton, not at the courthouse, as was done in the past for regular meetings. So thanks to everybody for your patience as we navigate this new space. Hopefully things continue smoothly. All those in favor? Aye. Anybody opposed? Fantastic. Well, it's really great to see everybody back here again. If I could have a motion to adjourn to executive session for advice of counsel and contracts.
So move. Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Anybody opposed? Thanks, everybody, for joining us tonight. Our next meeting will be Tuesday, July 13th at 7:30 p.m., also hybrid style, right here at 16 Croton Avenue. We look forward to seeing everyone then, and please be safe, and we will keep you informed if we do have any more updates about our weather, but we do hope to see everybody Friday night at our concert series. Have a great night, everybody.